This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started today, I want to make sure I take the time out to remind you, as always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating or a nice review. Very appreciated, very helpful. I'll see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media. You can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss, and we will start today's episode discussing the, I wonder if good is the correct term, but the competitive, I think that's a good term for it, competitive Thursday night football game between the Bears and the Buccaneers, a Super Bowl 52 rematch of sorts, at least that was how it was billed. Obviously different teams, but the quarterbacks were the same. Nick Foles, Tom Brady. This is the first time they will have played against each other, I believe. Yeah, this is the first time they played against each other. At least both as starters. I don't think they played the Jaguars last year, the Patriots, but I could be wrong about that. I don't know for certain. But at least as starters, this is the first time they faced each other since the Super Bowl. Obviously not as high scoring, not as interesting as a Super Bowl game, but again, competitive nonetheless. And Nick Foles raised his, or I guess what's the correct term for it? Added to his record, and now he is 2-0 against Tom Brady as a starter. One of the few and far between that has a record of that kind against Tom Brady. So Nick Foles, like I said, improved to 2-0 in his career against Tom Brady. The only other quarterbacks with multiple wins without a loss against Tom Brady, including the playoffs, are Jake Palmer, who's 3-0, Brian Griese, who's 2-0, and Cam Newton, funny enough, who didn't take his job, obviously, but is in charge of replacing him with the Patriots. And he's, like I said, he's also 2-0, so that's actually kind of funny that that's the guy they went to go get to replace him. And, that's pretty interesting. But yeah, Bears, Buccaneers. Very heavy game on the defense. Not a whole lot, like I said, not a whole lot of points. Not a whole lot of yards, I guess, outside of Rondo's on the ground. He had over 100 yards on the ground on only 17 carries. But through the air, yards were hard to come by. Points were hard to come by. There was pressure on both quarterbacks throughout the day. The Bears had 3 sacks on Tom, and 2 of those were by Khalil Mack, and I know they had the one wiped out because of I think it was like a double. I thought it was like a double penalty, but one was for roughing the pass. I think another one potentially got wiped out. So there was that, so that hurt them. And then on the Buccaneers side, they had 3 sacks also on Nick Foles. Like I said, both quarterbacks were under duress. They were under pressure. Both never really got comfortable 100% in the pocket. Obviously, they each had their moments, but they both were a little, like I said, weren't as comfortable as they could be in the pocket. The Bucs got off to the early lead. Yeah, they were up 10-0 by the end of the first quarter, and part of that was because because it was the Bears' second drive. They had the pass that Allen Robinson tipped up, and that ended up getting intercepted, which helped lead to the only, it was actually the only touchdown drive of the game for the Buccaneers. So, again, it just shows you how pivotal turnovers can be. They make things a lot easier for your offense depending on the field position you get. And they got the ball at the 50, so that helped them a lot. Again, this was the drive after Nick Foles had Allen Robinson for an easy 3rd and 2 completion, and he sailed it over his head. So, again, they were on the same page to begin the game, at least. Again, they had their issues, but throughout the rest of the game, Nick Foles and Allen Robinson were able to get it together. Like I said, the Bucs got up to an early 10-0 lead, and even 13-0 after a field goal. But then the Bears were able to drive back, get a touchdown, their first rushing touchdown of the year with David Montgomery on a 10-play, 75-yard drive. Then right before the half, Brady threw a dump-off pass to Vaughn, who got hit by Kyle Fuller and fumbled, and that led to the Bears taking over in good field position. I mean, not even good, great field position. I think they covered the ball at like the 27-yard line of the Buccaneers. So again, they only had to go like 30 yards, not even, to get a touchdown. And that play right there changed the entirety of the game. And, I mean, it's not surprising for that Bears team had a game-changing play on defense, but I think that's what they're going to have to hold their hat on this year. Is, again, Nick Foles is going to be inconsistent this year, so he's going to have his games of today where he was bad early, but then made enough throws later in the game to help seal the win. He's going to have his moments where, like, against the Falcons, where he's, like, great in the fourth quarter, because he obviously only played the second half, but, like, he's going to have great games, he's going to have bad games. But the thing that they can hope to be consistent is that defense consistently, like, keeping teams in and around or under 20 points. Then they have a chance to have a very good record and potentially catch the Green Bay Packers in that division. Because right now it looks like it's just those two. And, I mean, not even just looks like, it probably is just those two. I mean, the Vikings are 1-3. The Lions are, what are they now? I forget if they're 1-3 or 0-4. I'll double check that for you. But yeah, at this moment, it just seems like the only person that could potentially catch the Packers would be the Bears. Yeah, the Lions are 1-3 as well. So like I said, barring a complete collapse from one of those two, the division will come down to the Packers and the Bears, which again is at least what I thought it would be in the beginning. I wasn't sure how good the Vikings were going to be with all the new additions that they had to add in. Obviously, they haven't been a complete disaster, but again, only 1-3. And then the Lions, I mean, I kind of figured the Lions weren't going to be that good. And surprise, surprise, they are once again not that good. Because, yeah, no, I guess I don't. I mean, we'll see how long Matt Patricia can keep his job because of that, but again, did not expect the Lions to be that good. So it's going to be between those two. So like I said, this was a big win for them. It's another, and again, early in the season, records are what they are. Like you can't knock a team for being 3-1, 4-0, whatever. But there are a lot of teams that start out hot and kind of fade as the season goes on. And then again, there's teams that pick up steam as they get guys back from injury. They hit their stride, different things later on in the season. So there's only but so much you can read into a record this early in the season. That's why even though the Buccaneers were 3-1 coming into this game, I mean, I wasn't like that enamored by them. I obviously lost to the Saints, who again are they're only 2-2 or 3-1. They are they're 2-2 right now, but again they haven't had Michael Thomas, so there's that. But then again the Buccaneers they beat the Panthers, who I don't really know if they're good or bad yet. They beat the Broncos, who I think that was that the first Jeff Driscoll game? Yeah, it was the first Jeff Driscoll game. Like, I mean, come on. And then they beat the Chargers and a rookie quarterback, and they have to come back to do that. And they needed a literally flawless performance from Tom Brady to do that. Again, because he had 5 touchdown passes, and they gave up 31 points. So again, it's not like they couldn't have lost that game. They were down 24-7. And I think this was another game where there was a turnover right before the half, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they had a fumble. Joshua Kelly fumbled, and they recovered on like the 8-yard line, and then they scored like not that long after. So again, if they don't do that, there's a chance that they go into half down 17, and who knows if they come back, then they might have lost to a rookie. So again, even though they were 3-1, I don't know if they're like a good 3-1 or like a questionable 3-1. In fairness, like I said, the Packers were 13-3 last year, and I was definitely not convinced that their record indicated that they were that good of a team. And obviously, NFC Championship game showed that. But again, this year I have a lot more faith in them as a team. They look a lot better, and Aaron Rodgers is playing better, in my personal opinion. So, like I said, the Bears can do what they did, which is rush the passer, come up with timely defensive stops, timely turnovers. Like I said, that turnover in the beginning of the right before the half changed the game, because even though they got the ball back at the start of the second half, they punted right away. Like they didn't score again until until the fourth quarter. The Bears did. So again, the Buccaneers defense was doing the best they could too, given the circumstances. Their offense wasn't really moving the ball a whole lot, and when they did, they hit a lot of field goals, I believe. Yeah, they had 1, 2, 3, 4 field goal drives where they got close but then couldn't punch it in. Whether it was any, and again, both teams were kind of shaky around once they got to like the 40-ish yard line because of turnovers, like penalties and just like play call moving backwards, things like that. Like the Buccaneers were moving the ball, then they would that one drive they would just penalty after penalty after penalty after penalty. It was absurd. But yeah, so if the Bears can continue to do that, and where they can consistently hold the team down, or if they can do the whole bend don't break thing, contain themselves, contain the team, and make sure that they don't get into the end zone, then, like I said, as long as Nick Foles doesn't have a complete disaster of a game, which he rarely does. Like I said, he's not always great, but he's not normally a disaster. And like I said, that's what they needed. And now, in fairness, they were 2-0 with Mitch, and before he got benched, obviously. So they've been through this before. It's not like Mitch was a perfect quarterback during his tenure there. Granted, they went 8-8 last year, and I would say the quarterback play was subpar for the Bears last year. And again, they went 8-8. So if they can just get average to above average quarterback play, then we're talking about a team that could go 10-6, which somewhere between like 10-6, 12-4, something like that. Which again would put you right in the thick of things for the division crown. And again, if you don't win the division, that would stink. But at least you'll be in the playoffs. Like again, at the end of the day, they just want to get to the playoffs consistently. The Bears do, and again, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, all those guys kind of do, because this is a big year for their jobs. And things go south again this year, then things are looking shaky, especially since they decided Mitch is not the guy. So they need Nick Foles to at least be good enough this year. I don't know if he has to be the guy long term, but he has to at least be good enough this year to get you to the playoffs. Because that wouldn't mean, especially if like Cam or somebody gets the Patriots to the playoffs, because they had the chance to get Cam if they would have waited a little bit longer. But no, they wanted to rush and get on top of things for Foles, and they restructured the deal and everything. So they kind of can't afford to miss on this after, again, missing on Mitch in the Deshaun Patrick Mahomes draft. So, yeah, they got, like I said, in order to save their jobs, potentially they need to get into the playoffs this year at least, or definitely have a winning record, but probably get into the playoffs. So you got to, like I said, if you can keep up this level of defense, which is going to be tough to ask every week, but I mean, they're a solid unit. They can rush the passer. The pass defense looks good. The cornerback Johnson, as a rookie, he looks good. He was 1-on-1 multiple times throughout the game with Mike Evans. Did a fairly decent job. Kyle Fuller is definitely a former Pro Bowler, but I think he might be a former All-Pro as well, if I remember correctly. Like, he's been a solid player in his league for the last couple years. Again, he started off the beginning of his career was a little shaky, but the last couple years he's been pretty solid. Yeah, he was an All-Pro once. In what year was this? In 2018, he was an All-Pro. So again, he's not a bad player at all. I'm definitely very solid. So, like I said, if they can have, and Eddie Jackson's a former All-Pro, so again, they have good players on the defense. Now again, that goes, and Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn, those guys go without saying. Like I said, they have a very solid defense. So if they can just get good enough quarterback play, this is probably a lot of their games going to go kind of grind it out, and just hope for Nick Foles to work his magic, sprinkle his little pixie dust there at the end, and like I said, come up with a couple big plays, big throws, and that's going to be enough. Because I mean, that's really all he did on that last drive. Like they lucked out because of the roughing the passer on the previous drive, so they didn't have to punt from like their own end zone, so they were able to punt the ball a little bit further down the field, and they were able to get a stop on the Bucs, and then Nick Foles was able to drive about, I guess, with only like 30 yards. So he got the ball at their own like 48-yard line. So he didn't have to go that far, but he made a nice throw to an open receiver, but a nice throw to Anthony Miller on third down, and then he made a nice throw to David Montgomery on second down that got them in the field goal range. That basically all but sealed it for them. Now, again, didn't necessarily agree with them throwing on second down, especially not a fade pass, like a low percentage pass, and to where you could stop the clock, because then that gave Tom Brady and the Bucs a lot of time. Once they got the ball back, they had like a full, there was like a minute 13 left on the clock, so that's more than enough time. Granted, they had no timeouts, but again, a minute 13, you can get down, spike the ball. Like, Tom Brady's been here before. It's not that much of a shock for him. But speaking of Tom, the fact that he didn't know what down it was at the end of the game is kind of shocking, and also just, and again, obviously you get the jokes for like the old and like the wash stuff, but again, it's just like that's not something you expect to happen for a rookie quarterback, let alone for a 20-year vet, 6-time Super Bowl winner, like potentially, or well, in my opinion, the GOAT at the position. That's just not something you do, especially not in that, like that at the end of the game. Like you just like, because again, the pass he threw on fourth down was like that guy was never open, and it was clear that he was just like trying something. But again, I'm just like, oh, okay, maybe there was nobody else open, so hey, you throw that pass. And the fact that he thought he didn't realize that they were already on fourth down is kind of funny. But yeah, that was a bit of a mess, just a tad bit. But hey, like I said, we'll see how the Bucs can build from here. Like I said, they're not perfect. The Bears aren't perfect either. Both teams have a lot of things to work on. And the Bucs don't get an easy one next week. They get the Packers on the prime Fox game next Sunday. So that's, again, you kind of, in order to keep the distance between you or keep yourself atop the division with the Saints, who again are only 2-2, but they play who do they play this weekend? They play the Panthers, who knows how good or bad they are. Like I said, they're both 2-2. And then they play the Bears, funny enough. And then again, they face off for the second time in early November. So, like I said, in order to make sure you keep pace, you kind of can't afford to drop back-to-back games heading into that Saints matchup, especially having already lost to the Saints once. So they're technically already like a game up in essence, because they have the head-to-head record over you. When it comes to when it comes to the tiebreaks and things like that. So, like I said, the Bucs can't afford to do that again. Obviously, they have guys missing and things like that. But again, that wasn't necessarily an issue last week when Tom Brady threw for 5 touchdowns. Which is clear that the defensive front they were facing this week, and again, not that the Chargers don't have a good one, but I thought like Melvin Ingram was hurt. Obviously, I know Bosa was always out there, but again, Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn, like the secondary they have, those are all solid pieces. So it's not, and again, it's in Chicago, so again, not that's a big difference, but again, you are on the road, that could matter for some things. But yeah, it's just one of those things where like, if they don't protect Tom Brady, it's going to be a long season for him, because again, he's not used to getting hit a lot. He wasn't hit a lot today, but again, as a guy wasn't that mobile to begin with, you kind of need the line up front to do his job, so he can make the right reads and put the throws where they need to be. But again, if he's under duress and he's feeling, not like seeing ghosts or anything, but just like if he's feeling the pressure, feeling the heat, like there are some throws where you can just tell from both sides, and it was like, oh, this is effective getting hit all game kind of thing. So, like I said, both teams have a lot to build off of, but shout out to the Bears for getting the dub here on Thursday night. And speaking of Thursday night, it seems like because of COVID, we're going to have games all throughout the week, especially next week, but it's throughout the season. And so we'll talk about that, talk about the Titans and how they're kind of screwing everyone, and why I don't understand why the league is catering to them and screwing up, like I said, screwing up everybody else's record. And also just what I think they should do about them, and again, just kind of going to show that the NFL clearly didn't have this all planned out specifically, because again, the fact that they still don't have, like, there's different protocols for different games and things like that, and the way things are being handled is kind of a mess. But yeah, we'll discuss all of that right after the break. So stay right there.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, the Tennessee Titans have caused their second week in a row to go a little haywire, mainly because people keep testing positive on the Titans. Now, obviously, that's not like funny that people are testing positive because, again, this disease could be harmful for some people, but it's just like, how does this keep happening? Like, how does this, one, how did this happen? And then two, how does this keep happening to where, like, we are now into week 2 of this, and people, and this came up, like, Wednesday, Thursday, people are still testing positive from the Titans. Though, part of that may be because, apparently they held, like, a secret workout. Well, not like a secret workout, but, like, they were off all week, obviously. Well, last week, because, again, of the Rona. That makes sense. Like, all right, you don't want people in the building, like, everyone stay safe, stay away, quarantine yourself, make sure you don't put yourself in high risk. And then, like, hopefully we'll be back and good to go next week. And apparently it seems like, I think it was, like, Thursday or Friday. I believe it was Friday that they had, like, some of the players had, like, a workout. Like, they held a workout together. And it's just, like, one, I get it from the player's perspective. Again, it's not bright at all. That's not what I'm going to say. But I get it in terms of, like, all right, for these NFL players that haven't really had a real offseason, they're still trying to work themselves back into shape, get everything, make sure their bodies are right, they're healthy, they're keeping themselves like again as active and as in shape as they can. That's the word I was looking for, in shape. I understand them working out on their own, because again, it's just like, all right, like, we haven't really had a lot of time to get work done anyway up to this point. So, like, why would we lose anything that we've gained from 2 weeks of practice by going a whole week, or 3 weeks of practice by going a whole week off? Cool, that makes sense. But then you look at this from the non-football perspective, and I'm just like, bro, what are you guys doing? Like, what are they doing? Again, you have players on your team, players and personnel that are testing positive for the Rona left, right, and center. Why in the world would you guys, you know what the best thing we could do right now is if we all got together with a group of people and potentially pass the Rona from one of us to the rest of us. And I'm like, how does that make any sort of sense? And again, apparently they just found out this week because they tried to keep it in secret and all the different things like that, and eventually they kind of got ousted. But I'm just like, how are we allowing this to happen? And then also, like, based on what I know at this point, I haven't really heard anything, and obviously there's a lot of things that kind of break on Friday, so by the time you guys hear this podcast, like, we may have already heard some things about this, but as of what I know at this moment, I don't think there's been any sort of, like, penalties or, like, fines or really any sort of, like, backlash for the Titans for doing this. And not even just doing that, they also got another game moved. So, like, now their game against the Bills that was supposed to take place on Sunday is now moved to Tuesday. And that was according to, like, Adam Schefter and other guys at ESPN. It's scheduled for Tuesday at 6 p.m. after, again, the COVID outbreak continues to go through. It was already scheduled for Sunday. And with the practice facility closed September 29th, the 3 positive tests, I guess this week, pushed the team's total to 23 over the past 2 weeks. And the Bills, who were supposed to play on Thursday night next week against the Chiefs, which, I mean, that's a great primetime game. I was very much looking forward to watching that. Or I would have very much. I'm not going to say I knew it was going down before, but now that I did know, I'm like, yeah, that would have been a great Thursday night game to watch. Especially, again, the Bills are playing well, the Chiefs are playing well. Like, that's the kind of game you want to watch on national TV. You want to get, like, in prime time, you want to get, like, the good matchups against the good teams. Granted, it could have gone, like, Chiefs-Ravens, but at least the build-up to the game would have been fun. And now we might miss out on that, because the only way that game's going to happen is if they have to cancel or postpone, or whatever you want to call it, the game with the Bills, which, I mean, isn't completely out of the realm of possibility, because, like, at what point, like, at what day do you have to say, like, all right, if they have another positive test on Friday, like, does that warrant it? Does that have to be Saturday? Does that have to be like what day? Because, again, they have, like, over 20 people in the organization that have tested positive. So I'm like, what are we doing here? Like I said, I don't know why they're playing this week anyway. Again, they just had somebody test positive Thursday. So again, why, like, that should be enough to be like, all right, come on. Especially, again, after we know they had their own separate workout, like, why are we even wasting our time with this? And then, again, that's the kind of the odd thing for me about all this, is like, why is the league willing to do all this moving and shaking for the Titans? Like, for what? And again, obviously, I understand, because if we want to talk about the Patriots, again, they kind of get caught out there because instead of them having postponing a game, missing a week, and things like that, they did a decent job again. And don't know if I would have advised them to fly. I understand flying the guys separately, but again, they flew the guys that were in close proximity to Cam Newton on a separate plane. So again, it's from things I've read, it's like unlikely that you would get it on a plane. But if they're all, like, unless they're, like, all masked up or things like that, like if they're all, like, talking to each other, hanging out with each other, things like that, then there's a chance that one of them could pass it on. Obviously, we saw Stephon Gilmore tested positive this week. So, like I said, I don't know if he was one of the people that was on the Cam Newton plane. But again, like, so instead of them having a full-blown outbreak, they were able to contain it somewhat. Again, it's only a couple guys at the moment. And they had to play a game with Brian Hoyer / Jarrett Stidham starting against the Chiefs. As opposed to the Titans, let it run rampant through the organization to some level. Again, we don't know exactly how it happened or what prompted this, or who was the root cause, or who was patient zero, I guess you could argue, for the Titans. But because it just spread rapidly. And again, like I said, they're meeting all to decide when they're supposed to be, like, quarantining and separating themselves from the organization, from the players and things like that. And they're doing things on the side they shouldn't be doing. And everyone's just working around their schedule. So like I said, it's almost like it benefits you to just let it run rampant as opposed to try to be strict and stringent with, like, once you catch it, try to isolate them, try to take them out, different things. The same thing with the Falcons. Like, again, the Falcons had AJ Terrell, the cornerback, he tested positive, and they were just like, all right, take him out, and then, like, we'll play. And obviously nothing came of it. Like, I think that was the Falcons-Bears game. So, like, none of the Bears tested positive, none of the other Falcons, I believe, tested positive. So, again, it worked out, and that's, again, how it should go. But, again, they're probably going to lose that game anyway. But, again, you get the point. It's like, you're almost at a detriment if you catch it early and you, like, quarantine the proper guys. And like I said, and then like I said, the Titans screwed up the Steelers schedule because now they had an unnecessary bye in week 4. Now they have to play 13 straight games for no reason. Now they're messing up the Bills schedule. Like I said, they're supposed to have a game on Thursday. Now, instead of having a game Sunday, Thursday, now they might have games Tuesday and Sunday. And then that affects their whole the following week, because again, they were supposed to have a short week and then have an extended break. Now they're going to have a long week the week of, and then have a short week, and then, like I said, now they'll be back to normal. So their whole schedule is all kind of out of whack now. And again, that's assuming they even play that game. So again, it's just odd to me that they're doing all this moving and shaking to accommodate the Titans while inconveniencing, like, a bunch of other teams. Like, again, it's not like it's just the Steelers that got affected. Like, now it's the Steelers, now it's the Bills, now it's potentially the Chiefs. Again, there's a lot of different teams that are now a part of this and a part of the Titans screw up. And it just seems like the Titans, as of this moment, are getting off fairly scot-free. Like, there's been no, like, real punishment. They haven't had to forfeit any games. They're And again, it also screwed up, I guess, like the Ravens too, because now they were playing a different game, a different week. If I remember correctly, like their schedule got mixed up a little bit. So again, there's like different teams that were affected that had out of no fault of their own. Again, obviously Steelers and Bills, the two biggest. But again, this had nothing to do with them. They didn't break any protocols. They were following the rules. They don't have any positive tests. Or again, or again, they didn't have like any outbreaks or anything. Because we see the Patriots have positive tests, but it's not really affecting them outside of them having to play Monday instead of Sunday. So they're playing on Monday night again for the second week in a row. So that hurts. But just they said they're playing the Broncos on Monday at 5 p.m., which again is like a weird time. Like I get it, because I guess you don't want to do like the too late doubleheader kind of thing. But again, it's a game at 5. Who's going to be able to watch? Like who's going to be able to the West Coast? That's 2:00 on the West Coast. Like who's? I don't know what the viewership's going to be like. I don't know what the plan was there to have it that early in the day. But again, also you can say the same thing about all these baseball games. They're having baseball games early as like 1-2 o'clock, and I'm like, that's the morning in the West Coast. But yeah, whatever, you got to get 4 games in. I understand it to a degree. But then again, like I'm saying, and like I said, their games have just been moved back a day. So that's, I mean, it's an inconvenience. But again, it's not too bad. As opposed to the Titans, again, they're changing up teams' travel plans, their travel schedules, messing up their weeks, everything. Again, as of this moment, the Bulls are playing on a Tuesday. Again, for no reason. For literally zero reason, they were playing on Tuesday. And not to mention it's messing up fantasy things as well. I know in my own fantasy league, we have to have like a vote last week to see like how we would handle these type of things. And again, COVID is a fluid situation, so you want to have the proper things in place. But again, because the Titans just couldn't control the outbreak and couldn't play last week and potentially not this week, now they're screwing up a bunch of different stuff for everybody. As opposed to just like, again, if you were able to control it and contain like you should have, then if you're like the Falcons or the Patriots, whatever, you have guys test positive like the Saturday before and like still get the game off and like have no ill effects from it. Like I said, it just seems like almost you're incentivizing teams to just like let it run rampant, which I hope teams don't do. That's not the smart thing to do, and I would obviously advise against that. I mean, again, I'm not advising NFL teams, but you get the point. I'm just saying there's been no penalty for doing that. You're almost hurting the teams that do play when they like contain it. Because like I said, obviously it's unfortunate who got it. But like I'm saying, for the Patriots this week, they played last week without their starting quarterback. They might play again this week. I don't know how long you're on the COVID reserve list. But then I would assume this week Stephon Gilmore's not playing. So again, if they just had 20 people get it and they have to postpone the game, all right, there's a chance that Cam doesn't miss a game. And maybe, like I said, instead of you playing a game with Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham, maybe you luck out and you don't have to worry about that. Especially against a team like the Chiefs. Like I said, and then obviously again, you just have to fix the schedule later on. And I said, it just seems odd that there was no penalties in place. I thought they had rules and regulations and like restrictions and things you could do and couldn't do, things like that. But again, at this moment, it seems as if, again, and please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I haven't seen anything about saying like they're forfeiting games or like losing draft picks or like whatever. Like it's screwing up everybody else. And as of right now, the Titans haven't had the ill effects of being the root cause of all this. And like I said, that's kind of the wild part about it. Is the fact that, again, the Titans are the ones that screwed up. The Titans are the ones that have an outbreak. And yet, obviously, they're affected, clearly. But they're affecting everybody else around them. It's not just affecting them, which is kind of the entire point of the virus, actually, when you really think about it. That's a good microcosm for it, is that it doesn't just affect you. It affects the people around you, the people that you deal with, the people that you can potentially interact with. So again, just another reason why you should wear your mask, social distance, and try to make sure you don't get it. Because again, it doesn't just affect you. Like I said, this doesn't just affect the Titans. It's affected the Steelers. It's affected the Bills. It might affect the Chiefs. It's going to affect the Chiefs because again, instead of playing Thursday, now they're playing Sunday. And like I said, who knows? And then again, the Titans aren't going to be the only team that it happens to. As we saw this in the MLB, like it happened with the Marlins, happened with the Cardinals, happened with the happened with Cleveland. So again, it's going to happen. And when a non-bubble situation, it's going to happen. But I would just hope in the future we have better plans in place for
what to do if a team screws up this badly. Like I said, it's not like just a one-off like the Patriots. Like, all right, if it's just a one-off, like, okay, maybe you can move the game. Fine. That's cool. But if a team has to miss potentially 2 weeks of games, like, no, there has to be some sort of penalty. Like, you have to forfeit one of those games. Or potentially both, if you don't have the opportunity to make them up. But you have to forfeit games at that point. Like, the Titans end up having another person test positive and have to forfeit or have to, like, postpone games for 2 straight weeks. Like, no, there has to be a penalty involved. But you can't just, like, let that slide, in my opinion. Again, teach their own, but in my opinion, you can't just, like, no, you can't just let that slide. We gotta show that, like, no, this is, like, we're supposed to be followed. We have protocols in place because we want people to follow them. Like, if you don't show that there's a penalty for breaking the rules, then there's no reason for teams not to break the rules, in my own personal opinion. Again, I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm not going to say that's exactly how it's going to go down. But, like I said, if you don't show that, hey, look, don't do this, and if you do this, like, you're going to lose draft picks, you're going to forfeit games, things like that, then, like, again, then there's no reason for teams to, like, abide by the rules if there's no danger or there's no harm in breaking them, kind of thing. So again, I'm kind of surprised the NFL didn't already institute something. If the Titans have to postpone this game this week as well, they got to do something, and they got to give them some sort of penalty for it. And yeah, just I hope this is a wake up call for other teams. Like, hey, look, you can't have this happen. Not this bad. Again, one guy here or there, like, it's gonna happen. Like that's unsurprising. I'm not gonna say it's gonna happen to every team because it didn't happen to every team in the MLB, but I'm not gonna be naive and think it can't happen to other teams. But again, you can't have an outbreak happen on your team, and then in the middle of said outbreak, you have your players work out separately against rules and regulations. Like, come on, what are we doing here? What are we doing? So we'll see how that happens. Like I said, so Titans Bills is Tuesday as of this moment, if it even happens. Patriots and Broncos. Yeah, Patriots Broncos is Monday as of this moment. And then, like I said, next week's Bills Chiefs game will be on Sunday. I don't think they said the time yet, so I got to figure that out. Because again, obviously the team that was going to call that game is now no longer going to call that game because they the Fox team usually does it Thursday night games, and they imagine are going to have a Sunday game. So you got to figure out that. You got to figure out the time and when you're going to have it, things like that. Because again, they weren't supposed to have an event at whatever stadium. I forget if it was in Arrowhead or in Buffalo, but that wasn't supposed to happen. Like, so again, you got to figure out a whole bunch of logistical things. So it's unfortunate, but shout out to the Titans because they're screwing things up for everybody. How fun. So yeah, but speaking of sports that are going on a schedule, or I guess transitioning to a sport that is going on a schedule, and again had its own hiccups, but it's made it through so far through the playoffs. It's been pretty good. We're going to talk about some baseball, playoff baseball. A couple series ended. One series was extended, so we'll talk about that. We'll start with the AL first. So we'll talk about the AL first right after the break. So stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back. Here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So we'll start with the series that is now completed because there was one, and there's only one series that will be taking place on Friday, actually. Only one series that even made it past 4 games, yeah, because both in the NL wrapped up in 3. And then, like I said, the first series that we're going to talk about, Astros and A's, went 4. And then the next series, Yankees-Rays, is now going to a Game 5. So, Game 3 was yesterday. The A's were at least able to stave off elimination for a day. In a 9-7 victory, they were able to race a early, early 2-1 deficit, because they went up 1-0, and then in the bottom of the first, they were able to score 2. Then the A's went up 4-2. The Astros battled back, because again, that's just what they do. They're a veteran team. They're not going to fold under a little bit of pressure, and obviously they got a lot of big hits, mainly in that fifth, because that fifth really did them in. The A's, they gave up 5 runs in that inning, so they were down 7-4. They were able to get 2 runs back on a Chad Pinder home run in the 7th. Then they got 2 more runs on 2 sacrifice flies in the 8th. I'm trying to remember how they got the guys on base, in that inning. It was walk, then a double, then a sac fly, and then another walk, and then a hit by pitch, and then another sac fly, and then a strikeout. So, and I said not exactly like not. I mean, they've hit a lot of home runs. I believe they said on the broadcast on Thursday for Game 4 that 15 different guys hit home runs in this series. So again, it was basically almost a home run derby in this series, which again is kind of what you could expect with poor starting pitching, and both teams really kind of dependent on their bullpen to get them through a lot of these games. And like I said, the A's were just able to get a little bit better pitching from their bullpen. Liam Hendricks went 3 innings through 37 pitches, but that's what they needed. They only got 4 1/3 from their starter, Luzardo. They got a third from Pettit. He had 3 runs, 3 hits, and 8 pitches. And then they got an inning and a third from Diekman, who's been pretty good for them all year, and obviously was good for them again in Game 3. So then they had to go to Hendricks, and Hendricks again is not afraid from working long and doing what he has to do to get the team a win. He did it I think he did it in the last round too he tried to do it last round, didn't really work, but tried to do it last round against the White Sox. But in this game it worked, and instead they were able to get the 2 runs in the 8th, and Hendricks closed them out in the 8th and the 9th, which obviously was big and important. But again, they were able to hold off the A's for one more game. And the 8th was definitely a little bit more dicey, only because they got a couple guys on, and then he was able to get after getting 2 guys on, he was able to get a pop out, a ground out on like a little dribble out in front of the catcher, and then a strikeout, and then in the bottom 9th he set them down 1-2-3. So that was big. So boom, you get to Game 4, and in Game 4 they were not able to duplicate that performance. The Astros dominated, at least in the hitting department. They scored 11 runs on 14 hits. The starting pitcher Montez didn't last that long. 3 2/3, 7 hits, 5 runs, all of them earned. Gave up 2 home runs. So again, the Astros got on them big in the 4th, and then they scored every inning after that up until the 8th. So the A's, shout out to them, they got up to an early 3-0 lead. But like I said, this does not phase a team like the Astros, who have been here before, have experienced it before. They gave up, it was a 2-1 home run to Liriano on the 2nd. Oh, a 3-run, home run to Liriano on the 2nd. Then Brantley came back at a 2-run homer. Then Carlos Correa, who's been great in the postseason. I believe he's I think he has 15 or 16 home runs in the postseason already at the age of 26. So again, he could potentially go down as one of the great, at least from a power standpoint, one of the great hitters in postseason history, which again is kind of funny. Just because again, obviously all the noise and all the chatter, which warranted chatter around the Astros team. Yeah, okay, so I'm trying to think of, that was from a couple of days ago. I'm trying to see recent stuff. It doesn't, I don't know why it doesn't give me anything recently. I'm trying to see. Oh yeah, so this is from Ryan M. Spader. He says that Carlos Correa has 45 postseason home runs. The only shortstop in MLB history with more is Derek Jeter in 61. And Jeter has 102 more games played. No other shortstop has more than 23. So like I said, at a young age, he's really been a great postseason hitter. He had a 5 RBI game in this game. It was the first time that 2 shortstops in the same postseason had a 5 RBI game, because Tatis Jr. had one in the last round. And a lot of his home runs, especially the 3-run home, they're like no doubters. That's the crazy part. I think I saw another tweet that said he's like 9th all time in postseason RBIs. Again, 26 years old, so he was great. So again, obviously got the 3-run homer to put them up 5-3, and then they just never stopped scoring against. And granted, the A's didn't go away. Liriano had a home run, but then like I said, the fifth, 6th, 7th, they were just home runs from Altuve, Brantley, more RBIs from Correa and Tucker. Like I said, he was great. He went 3 for 4 or 5 RBIs in this game. Like I said, was dominant. It's been dominant throughout the whole playoffs. Was very good in this series. The Astros just aren't going to go away, which is unfortunate for fans of teams in the AL. Again, I'm not the biggest baseball fan. I follow it more casually. So obviously, I don't ever want to root for a team that cheated. But again, I don't have a personal vendetta or hatred for the Astros per se. I liked them as a team before, obviously, the cheating thing came out. And again, I have to like them a little less now. And also, one of the guy I went to high school with pitches on the team. He's not on the postseason rosters on the taxi squad, but in the end, still pitching the majors. So shout out to Belak. So again, I don't have anything against the Astros as a team, but I know a lot of people do. And the issue with them being so successful over these last few years is their 4th year in a row they made it to the ALCS. And obviously have World Series experience, different things. So this is not like a team that's just going to go away easy. Even if, again, they may not be cheating this year, which, again, you could argue. Who knows if it's true or isn't true. But the thing is, they're not going to be afraid of the moment. And like I said, that's honestly half the battle sometimes. It's just like, you want a team that's not going to be afraid of, like, if you get down early or you're down late, like, are you going to press? Are you going to, like, get out of your comfort zone, start swinging at wild pitches, start swinging at stuff out of the strike zone, start taking pitches that you shouldn't be taking, or trying to do too much, things like that. Again, I'm not going to say they're going to get to the World Series and win it, though a Dodgers Astros rematch would be very funny. Even if we get Yankees Astros, that'll be good enough for me. But I'm saying they're not just going to go away. Like, again, these are good players that were involved in some cheating, yes, but that doesn't mean they all of a sudden now become bad players. Obviously, they struggled during the regular season, but who cares? Not who cares, but they don't care. The regular season's over. This is not the regular season. This is the postseason now. And it's a completely different game, completely different mindset. And then they've been here before. They've done it. So again, they're not going to go away. You have to take them out. So they just weren't able to do it. And like I said, they didn't have the pitching, and even with their great bullpen. But it's just like, it's hard when you need 5 innings out of your bullpen every game when you're playing every night. Like that's impossible to do, almost. Especially if your team isn't really like a power hitting team like the Astros are, where in one swing or in a couple swings you could have 5-7 runs up on the board. Again, they had their moments in the series, and again, there was a lot of runs scored in the series as a whole, but that's not who they are. Plus, and shout out to the Astros for this, their bullpen was great. Like, the Javier guy was great, that Paredes guy was great. Presley had his up and down moments, but he was like relatively solid. Obviously struggled in that last inning, but it didn't really matter. They were up 7 runs going to that last inning, so like at the end of the day, like, who really cares? But yeah, their lineup was obviously great. Outside of Gurriel and like Reddick, most of them like hit, well, and Maldonado too, but most of their top 6, Springer all the way down to Correa, hit really well in the series. And again, if you're not going to get the best guys on the team out consistently, like, you're going to struggle. Again, if you look at their averages compared to the A's averages outside of Simeon, outside their top 3, like the rest of the guys, like, kind of struggle depending on the game. So like I said, if you can't count on your best guys to be your best guys in the playoffs, you're going to struggle. So, like I said, they were able to count on their best guys. So Springer had great games, Altuve, Brantley, Correa, like, Bregman again had a home run. So, like, again, they were great top to bottom. They got good enough starting pitching to be able to turn to that bullpen. The bullpen was good. You could argue it outpitched the A's bullpen. And they're going on to the ALCS, so shout out to the Astros. And then for their opponent, we still got to wait and see, because that's going to Game 5 on Friday. I don't know what time that is. Let me double check to see what time that game is on Friday. It's the only game, 7 p.m., 7:10 p.m., Rays Yankees. But the Yankees were on the ropes After winning the first game, they dropped the last two, and they're fighting for their playoff life and their lives in this game. And Voit and Gleyber Torres came through for them. Obviously, they had other players as well driving runs, but Voit came in with the big home run in the second to get things started, and then obviously Gleyber Torres had the big 2-run home run in the sixth to kind of put them up for good, because I mean they shut down the Rays in this game, which was, again, it's been hard for them to do. Had trouble getting Rosarena out this series, had trouble getting Choi out this series. Wendell, they had trouble getting out different guys, and different guys had big moments against them, but they struggled. And also they got decent starting pitching. Like Montgomery was a surprise. He went 4 innings, only gave up 3 hits, 1 run. I don't know if that's what they expected from him, but he was pretty solid, and obviously the bullpen was their bullpen. It's been pretty good, and it was good again in this one. They went from Green to Britton to Chapman. Didn't give up any runs. I don't think either of them, none of them gave up any hits either. So like I said, they got all 3 of their hits off of Jordan Montgomery. After that, the bullpen came and was lights out, which is, again, what you hoped for. So that had been the issue in the last game, especially in that game 3. Like, Tanaka was terrible. He pitched 4 innings, but he only gave up 8 hits, 5 runs. Like, that had been the problem. The bullpen, relatively speaking, after that, Chad Green kind of struggled, and Sessa gave up a run, but the other 2 guys that pitched were fine. But the issue is that they were giving up the home run. Instead, they gave up the home runs to Kiermaier, Rosarena, and Perez. Like, they were giving up home runs. That's the big issue. And like I said, even going back to game 2, similar kind of issue. They went to the Delvey Garcia, which again worked out fine, but I don't know why you went to J Happ after that. And J Happ kind of wasn't what you hoped for. In 2 2/3, gave up 5 hits and 4 runs. So, like I said, you get to the back end of you get to your main guys, your Chapmans, your Brittons, your Holders, your Chad Greens. Like, you'll be all right, generally speaking. Like I said, but you got to get there first. So, I believe they're going with, I would imagine they're going with Garrett Cole. Yeah, they're going Garrett Cole, and the Rays are going with Glass now, who pitched in game 2. Was pretty good in game 2. 5 innings, 3 hits, 4 earned runs, but 10 Ks. And that's the thing. Like, you couldn't go back with Blake Snell. Blake Snell was not good in game 1. And again, they have a very right-handed dominant lineup. So again, there's no reason to go with the lefty. Even though Blake Snell's been good against the Yankees and things like that. But again, just in terms of matchups, doesn't make any sense. Especially when you have a guy like Glass now, who's a right-hander, throws hard, is a strikeout guy. Like, that's who I would want if I were facing the Yankees. Hence why Garrett Cole had success against them the last few years. Is because, or Verlander or whoever, is because, again, you have guys on the team that are prone to striking out. Now, if they're not, like if they're getting hits and they're making contact, then things get a little bit more tricky for you. But like I said, generally speaking, they're not like impervious to the strikeout. Like, I think the thing that really helped them out today was that the Rays pitching only had 5 strikeouts. As I said, they were making contact, they're putting the ball in play. That's what you need to do if you're the Yankees. Again, that's not who they are, generally speaking. They have a lot of big hitters, but like I said, I know Judge has struggled, Voit has struggled, Urshela has struggled, so you're going to need hope for something from those guys in Game 5. But again, if you can continue to get good things out of LeMahieu and Stanton, and Hicks continues to get on base, and like I said, Gleyber continues to hit well. I imagine they'll go with Gardner tomorrow. He went 2 for 3 in this game. The catcher, who's not Gary Sanchez, Higgy. Again, if he's hitting well this series, he went 2 for 4 today. So if he continues to hit well, then they should be all right. Plus, if they get good pitching from Garrett Cole, who will be on shorter rest, but still, if they can get good starting pitching from him and they can get to that bullpen, they should be in good shape. Now, again, if they struggle and they're giving up hits and home runs to Rosarena and Choi, who again they got Garrett Cole in game 1. Like, it's not Garrett Cole was flawless in that first game. Their offense just scored 9 runs, so it didn't really matter. And especially in that top of that 9th, it was great. It was 4-3 heading to the top of the 9th. They just scored 5 runs. So like I said, Garrett Cole got the win, but he wasn't flawless. In 6 innings, he had 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 8 Ks. But like I said, he gave up a home run to Rosarena and a home run to Choi. So like I said, you're going to need him to be a little bit better than that in this game, and hopefully he will be if you're a Yankees fan. And if he's not, then you're going to need your lineup to have a good day against Glasnow, which, again, he's going on short rest. We'll see how he handles it, and if he's on a short leash or whatever the situation may be. Because, again, we're going to take all hands on deck. I imagine you could see Snell in there as well, given a circumstance or like a matchup, things like that. But again, anything goes in these winner take all games. So you're going to see all hands on deck. Anybody that's available to pitch will be thrown in there if need be. So like I said, you don't want to do like the White Sox did in Game 3 of their series, where you have to pitch like 9 different guys. Like the Padres have to pitch like 8 or 9 different guys in I think today's game, in Game 3. And over the course of this series, like, you're not going to win that way. If you have to keep making substitutions, you want to get someone that can kind of get the reins and calm everything down and get the game under control for you as a staff and as a team. And if you don't, then like I said, then you're going to struggle. So, like I said, Glasnow, Cole, tomorrow should be a good one. Should be a competitive one, in my opinion. Going to be some fireworks, I would imagine, because again, these teams like to hit home runs. So we'll see who's able to strike most in the biggest moments. I think in this, I want to say in this postseason, something like, again, obviously everyone likes to think like, oh, you got to do the little things like advance the runner, bunt, different things like that. But I believe the team that hits the most home runs generally wins. So again, see if that fact holds true in this series or in this Game 5 as well. Because again, it's at the end of the day, it's like getting big hits in big moments, and many times those big hits are home runs, especially in the playoffs. Because again, you got guys throwing harder, and you got better batters. So, like I said, you're gonna more likely to see balls get hit a long way if those good batters square it up. And like I said, like the Torres home run and the Voit home run, those are all over 400 feet. And again, they're not alone. There's been a lot of massive home runs hit in the playoffs so far. So, like I said, should be an interesting one. And we'll see how it goes. See if the Yankees can pull it out or if the Rays will advance to the ALCS. So again, either way, should be a good game. So I'm interested to see how that one plays out. And speaking of playing out, the NL side of things is already played out. Both series are now done. They both were sweeps. Both got wrapped up pretty handedly and pretty easily here in Game 3. But again, I'm not surprised. So we'll talk about it and give flowers to the Padres and the Marlins. Because again, these are teams that many people thought, Marlins definitely not, but Padres people thought they could be good eventually, but they know they were going to get this far. And again, obviously still have a long way to go. But we'll talk about all that right after the break. So stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, Marlins, Braves. Yeah, it went about as well as I thought it would be, or thought it would go for the Marlins. They were just not the Braves. Like, they just don't have that kind of lineup, don't have the kind of manpower. Granted, they got halfway decent pitching, more or less. Like I said, in Game 1, they were holding them down through the first few innings, and obviously the Braves had the big 6-run inning in the 7th, and then that kind of undid all the good that they had done. Also, I think it was an interesting stat. Thought I saw that they were outscored 17-1 after the end. Let me check the math here. 6, 7, 8. And then obviously the 2. Yeah, so 17-1 after they hit Ronald Acuna. So clearly, one might not have been the smartest thing to do. But hey, you live and you learn. You live and you learn. But yeah, so they said they just weren't able to keep pace with that lineup. In game 2, they were only able to get 3 hits. Granted, the Braves only got 4, but 2 of their 4 hits were home runs. Like I said, it doesn't matter when you get your hits or how you get your hits. I mean, no, it doesn't matter how you get your hits. It just matters when you get your hits. That's what I meant to say. And like I said, they didn't get a lot of hits. The Braves did. The Marlins did the best they could in terms of pitching. And like I said, held them to 4 hits, and that's a tough lineup to do. To do that against. And 3 of the hits came off the starter, so the bullpen for the Marlins only gave up 1 hit in 3 innings. Like I said, and the Braves lineup is very good. It's hard to do. But again, when you hit 2 home runs, you win 2-0. And then in game 3, it was just another situation where the Marlins couldn't really do a whole lot as an offense, and the Braves jumped on them early and kept going up until the 5th, and then obviously they were up 7-0, and then it didn't really matter that much after that. So, again, shout out to the Marlins. Obviously their season was a bit of a roller coaster with the whole Rona thing and like having to play guys like off the taxi squad and different things, just random guys playing earlier in the season. Then they would get things back together and make the playoffs. And when the playoffs, he would beat the Cubs. So it's not like it's not a complete disappointment or failure or anything like that. Like, no one thought they were going to be competing for this spot. No one thought they would get this far, even if they did make it to the playoffs. And they did. And they competed with arguably the second best team in the NL, excuse me. I think record-wise, they were the second best team in the NL. I just want to double-check to see if it was them or the Cubs. No, it was them. So like I said, this is... Oh, no, I'm wrong. It was Padres. Padres were the second best team. So, apologies to Padres. We'll get to them in a second. So one of the best teams in the NL they competed with, and again, they just didn't have the lineup at the end of the day. Like, again, their pitching wasn't a problem, more or less, but it was just they just couldn't stop the big inning. Like I said, the Braves had a 4-run inning in the 3rd, a 2-run inning in the 5th, had a 1-run inning sandwich between them. So it was just like once the Braves got going, they're kind of hard to stop, and that's what the Marlins ran into. Plus, the issue that I thought and many people thought was going to potentially hurt the Braves come playoff time actually was very good. Like, their starting pitching in this series was great. Like, again, and not even just this series, overall in the playoffs. Now the Reds, you would argue, don't have a good lineup either, so there is that. But 4 out of their 5 playoff games so far, they've had a shutout. I mean, that's absurd. Again, for a team whose starting pitching was not that good during the post regular season. Obviously, they had Fried and Anderson, but their 3rd pitcher was kind of up in the air. And then Kyle Wright today came out and threw himself a gem. So shout out to him. 6 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 2 walks, 7 Ks. Threw under 90 pitches. I said the bullpen was still the bullpen. It was great. So that, again, the bullpen being good is not necessarily the shock, but the shock was that they're starting pitching. Ian Anderson, again, was very good. Like, the worst starter was Max Fried, honestly. Like, he was not that good in Game 1, but Ian Anderson in Game 2 was, again, very good. He was very good in the last series as well. But he went 5 2/3, 3 hits, 1 walk, 8 Ks. And, like I said, hands it off to the bullpen, and the bullpen got just putting up zeros. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing for them moving forward. And obviously, we'll preview that come Sunday when we see whoever the AL matchup is. But yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing. That was going to be the biggest thing for them heading into the playoffs, and it's still the biggest thing for them, in my opinion, is that like their lineup is good. Obviously, you want to hope for more out of some of the non-Acuna guys, because he was good in this series. But you're going to hope for more consistent play out of Freddie Freeman. Actually, take it back. He was not that good. Actually, I apologize. He had on base and scored runs and things like that, but average-wise, it wasn't that good. Would you hope for more for Freddie Freeman? He's been up and down. Hope for more from Albies, from Duvall, from Markakis. Like I said, Ozuna was good. Darno was really good in this series. I don't say surprisingly, because again, like his biggest thing over the course of his career was that like he was just always hurt. But in the postseason, in the 4 games he's played, he's gotten a hit in every game. He had 3 hits in game 1, and 4 RBIs, and obviously he had the big home run in game 2 to help like again cement the 2-0 victory. So he was been very good for them throughout this postseason. Didn't play in game 3, if I remember correctly, and also again he had a big 3-run homer in game 1 as well. So he was great. So you're going to need more consistent play out of some of the other guys. But again, if other guys pick up the slack, you'll be able to make up for it. And also, if you get this level of starting pitching, that's going to be the big thing. Because as we'll talk about with the Dodgers in a second, like the Padres didn't have the pitching. Like once Clevenger couldn't go, and obviously Lamet couldn't go, they just didn't have the starting pitching to keep up with the Dodgers. Like I said, the lineup was good. Obviously, they had their moments. They're young and experienced. Like you're going to learn from these moments. And they had chances there, especially late in that second game. I believe they had the bases loaded. They had bases loaded in game 3 as well. Like they weren't able to get the big hit when they needed it. But also, again, it's just hard when you're pitching 8-9 guys every game. I said that's not a recipe for success in the playoffs, in my opinion. You need somebody to be able to take the reins, take control, and give you 2, 3, 4 innings of stable play. You don't have to be lights out, don't have to be striking everybody out, but just like not getting a lot of guys on base, not walking a lot of guys, not giving up a lot of hits, and then also not really giving up and obviously not giving up any home runs, because that's the biggest thing, is that like the home run, the long ball will kill you, especially come playoff time. So if you're not giving up that, then you can live with some of these other things. But if they get this level of starting pitching, then we could be in business. And again, that was the biggest question mark coming to the playoffs, is how good was their non-Max Fried or Ian Anderson starting pitching going to be? And like I said, it's been great so far. It's been great. Like I said, Max Fried honestly has the worst start of any of their pitchers so far. Like he's the one with the worst start, which again is kind of wild when you think about it. But yeah, like I said, Ian Anderson's been great. Kyle Wright was great in this game. And like I said, their bullpen, if you look at their ERA, their bullpen putting up zeros all throughout. So that's been big for them. So their bullpen's been lights out. Their starting pitching has been very good. And now they're going on to the NLC. I keep getting them switched up. NLCS for the first time in I don't know how many years it's been, but they'd always kept getting to the playoffs, and then losing in the divisional round. So now at least get into the NLCS with a chance to go to the World Series. And I think there's a chance they could beat the Dodgers. Now, will I pick them? We'll have to wait and see come Sunday. But again, I wouldn't put it past the Braves to win that. And then obviously, like I said, moving on to the next thing. So, before I move on, again, shout out to the Marlins. Just again, good season for them. No one expected them to be here. No one. Again, you hate these like moral victory kind of speeches whenever you lose in the playoffs, because again, you want to win in the playoffs. That's why you get to the playoffs, is to win. But for a team like the Marlins, who has a lot of guys that weren't necessarily household names and not that many people knew about, things like that, it was good for them to have their moments on this stage. Again, they got swept, so there is that. But again, they know like they needed more help pitching wise. They need a couple more consistent bats, different things like that. But again, this is a good stepping stone to be like, all right, the Marlins aren't going to be terrible. So then maybe they can attract not necessarily the top tier, but like a mid-level or some of these like unheralded free agents that help make your rosters what they are. Because again, obviously, it's great to get the prize of free agency, even though that doesn't really happen as much with guys signing with longer deals and things like that. There's not as many big time free agents that hit the market. But again, obviously everyone wants those guys, but it's those tier 2, tier 3 guys that can really be the difference maker. Because again, you're not paying them $30-40 million, so you can sign a couple of them and get a big contribution from them. So we'll see if the Marlins can do that and build on the success that they had this season. So on to the Dodgers Padres. And yeah, the Dodgers showed the Padres that you're just not ready yet. And again, that's fine. That's fair. The Padres obviously were a great surprise. Everyone thought they could be good, but no one thought they were going to be the second best team in the NL this year. At least not that I knew. Again, I could be wrong about this, but I don't know if they were penciled in as the second best team in the NL. Penciled in probably as an improvement. See how Tatis grow. How's he going to come back from injury? Is he going to be better defensively? how some of the younger guys, because obviously Cronenworth wasn't really household name, Grisham, some of those other guys weren't really necessarily like prominent names. What they're going to do pitching wise, like I don't know if anyone expected Lamet to be as good as he was this year, things like that. So, like I said, they had a great season, but throughout this series, the Dodgers just showed them like it's levels. And again, that's going to happen when you have a team. Obviously, again, their team isn't like that old. Like they have some older guys like Justin Turner and some other guys, but like they're just an experienced team. Whether even the young guys like the Cody Bellingers, the Corey Seagers of the world, even Mookie Betts only like 28. Like they have playoff experience. Like I said, Will Smith, who had 5 hits today, I think in game 3. And they're an experienced group. Like they've been in the playoffs before. A lot of these guys for the Padres, it's their first time getting into the playoffs. So again, you want to use that and build on it. And also, again, they got hurt at the wrong time. And again, that's a part of being successful in the playoffs. You got to win the war of attrition. Everybody, again, has stories like they were talking about on the broadcast. Everyone has like, oh, this person didn't get hurt, or that person didn't get hurt. And all sports are like, oh, we could have won this, or we could have won that. Like again, it's a part of the game. It's an unfortunate part, but it's a part of the game. But again, they came into the playoffs with like little to no starting pitching, and you can't win in the playoffs that way. I don't care how good your bullpen is. It's gonna eventually, again, even if they were able to get to a game 4 or a game 5, it's gonna be tough for them to beat the Dodgers because again, the Dodgers are obviously no slouches, and I think they mentioned that on the broadcast. Dave Roberts said that we want to face as many of their relievers as we can early in the series. So again, that they'll be A, tired for later in the series, and B, we'll know what they throw, we'll know what to expect. Like again, in the playoffs, you may be seeing this year is different due to the fact that again you only really played the teams in your general vicinity or the general geographical area, so they probably faced a good number of these guys a decent amount of times. But again, if you get into the playoffs, you're facing people for the first time sometimes, so you want to get a gauge on like, all right, this guy throws this in this situation, or this guy likes to go to this, or this guy likes to go to that, or this is his out pitch, or this is different things like that. Again, you have scouting and things like that, but you really don't know what it's like until you get into the box and try to hit against these guys, and again, vice versa. You get on the mound and try to pitch against these guys. So again, that was their big thing, was get to their relievers and to get to as many of their relievers as they could, and that's really what hurt the Padres. Is that like, all right, going back to game 1, the Padres had to pitch 9 different guys for the Clevenger injury. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, they had to pitch 9 different guys. In game 2, they had to pitch. Now, game 2 is really the one they're gonna feel bad about because that was a game that they could have had. In game 2, they had to pitch 5, and then in game 3, they had to pitch. I mean, the Dodgers had to pitch a decent number too, but yeah, I mean, this list is extensive. And again, obviously people struggled, so that was a part of the reason why. But when you can't count on anybody on your team to go more than like 2 or 3 innings, like, yeah, I don't think they had a starter or an opener, or whatever you want to call it, go more than 2 innings, whether because of injury or because of just take that back. Davies went 5, but again, the starter, the opener, whatever you want to call him today, only went 2, and then obviously Clevenger only went 1 because of the injury. So that was the issue. But again, game 2 is the one that's going to hurt for them because they had their chances. They had their chances there. They scored 2 runs in the top of that 9th inning. They didn't go away quietly. They got to Jansen, made him throw a lot of pitches. They had to bring Joe Kelly in, and even he walked 2 guys to load the bases, and then Hosmer grounded up to second. So, like I said, that was their chance, in my opinion. That was their chance to kind of turn the series because if they win that game, now, all right, they feel a bit different about themselves. But since you know that they've been good so late in games, but also just again they had some issues with getting in big hits, and when they needed to, because even in that game they were down 4-1 until back-to-back home runs off Kershaw to lead off the top of the 6th in that game too. So that was their issue, that they just couldn't. They never really were within striking distance. They were always down and always down early. Obviously, they got off to an early start in game 2, but then they were down. By the bottom of the 3rd, they were down 3-1, and then that quickly turned to 4-1 in the 4th when Bellinger hit a home run. So that was their issue, that they were always fighting back. And again, that just, at a certain point, it's just going to tire you out. It's going to be hard to overcome. And again, when you have your chances in those moments to get those clutch hits They just weren't able to pull through. And again, it's just a situation where they'll learn from it, they'll grow from it. So I think they'll be fine going forward. But the Dodgers showed them that it's levels. It's levels. The Dodgers didn't score under 5 runs in a game, as opposed to the Padres. They only scored 1 in game 1, 5 in game 2, and then 3 in game 3. So like I said, the Dodgers just were able to, in those moments, whether it was a walk or a sacrifice fly or a single or a home run, whatever, they were able to get those big hits in those big moments, or more of them, I should say. And then game 3, they really just poured it on. It was really unfortunate for them. They got 12 runs on 14 hits. Like, it was over by like the 4th inning. Again, obviously it's not officially over because they had chances, but I think once, I forget, it was the 2nd inning, if I remember correctly. I want to double check this, but I believe it was the 2nd inning that they had the bases loaded. Yeah, the 2nd inning they had the bases loaded, and they got Castro to ground into a fielder's choice. Grisham singled to score a run, and then Tatis Jr. struck out. And like I said, that was the big one. Because if Tatis Jr. hits a home run, or like even hits a ball in the gap, and you score 2-3 runs, all right, now you're feeling yourself. You're feeling that momentum. And that was just the thing, is that, like, I feel like, and with that lineup, it was just like, all right, who's going to get the ball rolling? Who's going to get the ball rolling? And no one could get the ball rolling. At least not today. And again, obviously, they couldn't pitch. So it didn't really matter. But again, maybe guys pitch different with the lead as opposed to being... Obviously, guys pitch different with the lead as opposed to being behind. And that's the problem, is that, all right, so then they come out of that base-loaded situation with only giving up 2 runs. I mean, only giving up 1 run, the Dodgers. And then in the bottom of the 3rd, they score 5 runs. Like I said, that's a big swing. So, all right, if you score 2, 3, 4 runs that inning, instead of being down 6-2, heading in, maybe you're down 6-4. And all right, you're still within striking distance. Like I said, you're down 6-2, and that's striking distance for the Padres, but it's too hard to overcome to be down that big all the time. And I think the other big one was in the bottom of the 6th, where they were down 8-2. Machado singles. Hosmer safe after like an error by the left fielder, and they have runners on 2nd and 3rd, no outs. And they score a run on a balk. And then the next 3 guys strike out, pop out, and fly out. So like I said, you had 2nd and 3rd, no outs. And with, again, it's the middle to bottom of your order up. But, no, because Tatis is leadoff. Yeah, so I think it was like the middle part there was like their 4, 5, and 6 hitters were up. And they only scratched across 1 run, and it was on a balk. It's like I said, that's just, you can't win games like that, especially not in the playoffs. So, like I said, shout out to the Padres. It was a good season, but the prohibitive favorite made it to the NLCS. That's not a surprise, and there's nothing to be ashamed of in that, obviously, but they just need to know that, look, we're going to need to hope either we can get guys back healthy and ready to go for the playoffs, or you need some of these younger guys, whether it's Gore or Weathers or whoever, or Paddock improving, or different things like that. You're going to need to get better starting pitching, because you can't just rely on your offense to bring you back and win you games every single time. Like, that's too hard to do. You're going to need good starting pitching. That's why the Yankees have struggled as much as they struggled over the last few years, because they've only had consistently 1 good pitcher in the playoffs. And now they're supposed to have 2, and they still only have 1 because Tanaka's been struggling, but they got good stuff out of Montgomery. But again, obviously their 1 is Cole. So like I said, and that's why the Astros were always so good, because before they got I forget who it was, Verlander and somebody else before. But then obviously they got the great downs out of Morton and McCullers and different things. So they were piecing together. But like once they got through that, like last year it was Cole, Verlander, Greinke. Like that's a very, very solid 3. And that's really all you need in the playoffs. Just 3 good starting pitchers. And just 3 of them. Because again, with the off days and travel days, things like that, that's all you need. Maybe a 4th if you have a 4th. Most teams don't have 4 solid, trustworthy starting pitchers in the playoffs. And like I said, the Padres didn't have 1. Like, Davis gave them the best starting pitching outing in terms of length of innings. Obviously, partly because Clevenger got hurt. But again, it was hard for me to expect Clevenger to come out there and throw like 6, 7 innings, shut him down, because he hadn't pitched in a while. Like, you can't expect that. Or I wouldn't have expected that if I were the Padres. But hey, we'll see what they expected. Because I don't know what their intel on the situation was. But again, it's just they had their shots. Like, Game 2 was the one. Game 2 is the one that if you take that one, all right, then you come into Game 3 feeling a little bit different. And now you're down 2-0, your backs are against the ropes, you're down 8-2, in the middle innings. Like, it's just that you weren't out of it, but again, you had your moments and you weren't able to get them, like in that second inning with the bases loaded, and then also in the sixth. I think it was the fifth or the sixth with every inning when they had second and third and nobody out, and they were only able to score 1 run. Like I said, you had your moments, and again, you couldn't get anybody on the Dodgers out. So that also hurt, I believe. Just looking through that lineup now. Let me see. Everybody but Muncy had a hit. Well, again, out of their and Muncy and Taylor. Like, again, Betts had a hit, Seager had a hit, Turner had a hit. Will Smith, like I said, went 5 for 6. Bellinger was 2 for 5. Pollock was 2 for 4. Jock Peterson was 2 for 3. So like I said, the middle of their order really came into play in this game. Mainly Will Smith, he had 3 RBIs, but also Bellinger, he had 3 RBIs too. So that was the big thing. Like, they had trouble getting the top 5 or 6 guys in their lineup out all series, and you're gonna struggle like that. It's the same thing with the Astros. The Astros got good hitting out of their first 6 batters. It doesn't matter. Just, all right, it's your turn, or it's my turn, or it's this guy's turn, or that guy's turn, and then eventually you're sweeping a series because the guys can't get you out. So, like I said, shout out to the Padres. They had a great season. They're fun. They're going to be a good team to watch. Them and the White Sox are going to be fun to watch for the next 10 years, because a lot of their best players are younger guys. So you're going to watch them grow, watch them develop. Obviously, Tatis had big moments. The Padres had big moments in that first wild card round. Didn't have as many, and obviously Bellinger robbing the home run in Game 2, that changed things as well, because that looked like a home run to take the lead in Game 2 off of Tatis's bat, and again, Bellinger robs it. And again, that's just another thing where sometimes you need time and defense as well as good pitching and good hitting, and that's unfortunately, like I said, the Padres, not that their fielding was bad, but they also did have 2 errors in this game. So, like I said, sometimes you need those game-saving defensive plays, and that's what Bellinger provided. But again, it's not surprising. He's a young guy, but he's a vet. He's been here before. He's been in these moments before. So even on that play, it looked like a sure home run. In a situation where it was going to put the Padres up 1, I believe, because it was 5. I forget if it was 4-3 or 5-4 at that time. I want to go and double check, but I believe it was in the 6th. That's the last thing, and then we'll move on, because I know I've been talking about this for too long. So no, it was in the 7th. So Grisham had just gotten hit in front of him, and then Gratterall came in, and shout out to the Red Sox, because obviously they gave up Mookie Betts, but they also gave up Gratterall as well. So that hurt. But again, he's a hard-throwing guy, and also I saw a little back and forth, because he was very happy, threw the glove, threw the hat. That was a bit extra, but again, I'm a guy that doesn't really get too mad about bat flips. I can't really get mad about a pitcher being excited and a literally game-saving defensive play. But yeah, so it was top of the 7th. Tatis ropes one. You're just like, oh, yep, there it is. Home run to center field. It's going to get them going. It's going to bring all that energy back. And Bellinger was just like, nope. Made the play. And like I said, that kind of swung that game as well, because that was the moment that the Padres could have taken the lead, and then who knows what happens from there. But then they weren't able to, and then they gave up 2 runs in the bottom of the 7th. That's kind of just how it went. Whenever the Padres couldn't capitalize, the Dodgers did. And that was all she wrote. So, like I said, shout out to the Padres, but Dodgers, the prohibitive favorite, are moving on to the NLCS. Not really that shocked by that. One bit. Speaking of not being shocked, I was a little shocked to see that the Executive of the Year award was announced today. Did not expect that one to come out. And also, I was surprised by the winner, not only the winner, but also how the voting went down. Because there's some people you're just like, how did this guy get this low on the Executive of the Year award voting when his team is really good? But we'll talk about that, and obviously I'll give my predictions for Game 5. How I think. Well, do I think the Lakers close out in 5? Do I think they close out in 6? Do I think the Heat 4-7? We'll talk about all that right after the break. So stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So, Executive of the Year was won by Lawrence Frank. Shout out to him. He did do a good job. Again, not going to use this segment to knock him per se. Obviously, acquired Kawhi, acquired Paul George. He also helped bring Marcus Morris in, brought Reggie Jackson in. So, again, it's not that he didn't do anything. But when you look at Lawrence Frank and how much he won by, it's kind of surprising, to say the least. Especially when you look at the rest of the list. So, he had 10 first place votes, more than anybody else. The next highest was 4. Had 3 second place votes and 2 third place votes for a total of 61 points. So he won by a total of 20 points over the next closest guy, which was none other than Sam Presti. Which, again, kind of undercuts Lawrence Frank's whole legitimacy in terms of his candidacy for this award. Obviously, again, acquired Paul George, acquired Kawhi. That's great. I'm not knocking that. But if the guy who's second executive of the year, his biggest move was extracting assets from the executive who's number one, how does that make any sense? And when you really break it down, you think about it. Again, he got Kawhi partly because he was just in LA. That helped. And obviously they had Doc and other things. But he traded for Paul George. I mean, cool. Again, no knock. They were good during the regular season. But again, Sam Presti's best move was trading Paul George, and then obviously also trading Russ for Chris Paul. So I don't know if he's getting more weight for the Chris Paul trade or for the Paul George trade. But again, Shea was great for them, was their leading scorer. Gallo was good for them. And also now they have a bunch of first-round picks moving forward. And again, we'll see what happens with that. But again, are you going to give Sam Presti Executive of the Year in 2023 when he uses that first-round pick he got from the Clippers this year to flip or draft a guy? I'm very confused as to what got Sam Presti the award if he was going to finish behind the guy who he took most of the stuff from. Again, it's very confusing to me how that line of thinking works. And also, again, if you look at some of the other guys, so in third was Pat Riley. Cool. Again, no real qualms, no issues with that personally. But again, Pat Riley took a team that was not in the playoffs, brought in one guy, Jimmy Butler, drafted Tyler Hero, traded for Iggy and Jay Crowder, and they went from that to now the finals. Again, it's a regular season award. None of the playoff success matters. So that's true. But again, the Heat went from a team that everybody felt Jimmy Butler's going to be so bad. He just went there for the sun. He doesn't really care about winning, blah, blah, blah. When the season ended, they were a top 4, top 5 team in the East. It's not like they were a bad team, and they just so again, it was surprising they made it this far, but they weren't a bad team. It's not like they were the 6, 7 seed when the season ended. They just had a great run in the bubble. Obviously, they had a great run in the bubble in the playoffs, but during the regular season, they were a good team. So it's not it shouldn't be that surprising. And then also, it's even more, and again, I'm not a Lakers fan, so I'm not a conspiracy theorist when it comes to them and the way the media treats them and disrespected them and things like that. But when you look at the fact that Rob Pelinka was 7th and only had one first place vote when he traded for AD, who's, okay, you could argue whether he's better or not than Kawhi, but he's clearly better than Paul George. That's point blank period. Brought in Avery Bradley. Brought in Dwight, who was very good for them this year and obviously being great for them in the postseason. Retained Rondo, retained KCP. So I'm just saying, like, you look at some of the stuff he did, and on top of that fact, the Lakers were the number one seed in the West at the time that this was the season ended, when the voting was, when they during the part of the season that they used to calculate the votes for this kind of thing, or used to vote for this kind of thing. Like, it's not like the Clippers were a better team, like they were a worse team, and also they acquired They acquired Markieff Morris, who was vital for them, who has been very good for them throughout these playoffs and even in this finals. So again, it's curious what this weird favoritism was towards the Clippers when it comes to award voting. It's almost like, and again, you don't know this per se, but it's like a lot of these things, it kind of determined narrative base before the season. Like, everyone was like, oh, they added PG, they added Kawhi, they're going to be amazing. And again, they were very good during the regular season. I'm not knocking that. But they, A, weren't even the best team, and B, might not have even acquired the best player this offseason. Like, again, you could argue Anthony Davis was the biggest acquisition this past offseason. And I don't think, again, especially based on the way that the regular season and the postseason played out, you could definitely make that argument. But even before you got to the postseason and you knew the Clippers were going to fold up, like, obviously them folding up hurts their legitimacy. But again, during the regular season, Anthony Davis was more instrumental in the success of the Lakers than you could argue, because Kawhi and PG and like their starters didn't really play that much together. Like, their main guys, especially after Morris came, like their main line did not play that many games together. So again, obviously they were good because they could rest Kawhi and they could rest PG and they could rest Lou Will and do different things. And then they had the talent to sustain those sustain through those injuries or load management or things like that. But again, a bigger reason why the Lakers went from out of the playoffs to number one seed and then obviously to the finals was because of Anthony Davis. Like, again, if you have Lonzo and Brandon Ingram and Josh Hart and those guys, they may still get to the finals because LeBron is LeBron, but I don't think they're the dominant number one seed. I don't think so. And again, we won't ever know, but I don't think so. Then again, you add in Anthony Davis, who might have, or not even might have. In my opinion, he was the biggest acquisition this year. I mean, the Lakers are going to win a championship because they acquired Anthony Davis. How does that not get you higher than 7th? So again, I'm not a Lakers fan, so I'm not going to go big on like the whole Clippers love fest thing. But again, when you see these kind of votes and you see things like that, it's like, and then again, also you think about how Montrezl Harrell won 6th man of the year when he wasn't even maybe officially the 6th man on his own team, and obviously got played off the floor in the playoffs. And you could argue that he's the third. He's maybe like the 4th or 5th most important Clipper, while Dennis Schroeder. And this one I'm a little bit more biased on, but Dennis Schroeder obviously was a big part of the reason why the Thunder were as good as they were. Obviously, Chris Paul is the main reason, but he's a big part of the reason why. He's the big part of the reason why they had the best 5-man lineup in the league this year. And obviously, on certain nights, he was the best Thunder player. I don't know how many nights that happened for Montrezl Harrell, where he was like, you know what, Montrezl Harrell was the best player on the floor for the Clippers. I don't know how many. I guarantee I don't watch the whole Clippers game, but I know it happened 0 times in the playoffs. But again, there's certain games throughout the year where it's like, oh, they're going to win this game because of Dennis Schroeder and his play. And again, obviously, not to say Montrezl Harrell was bad, but again, you have Lou Will, you have Kawhi, you have PG. Like, you're not getting that same level of attention. And again, obviously, not to say that they were scrubs on the Thunder. Like, you have Chris Paul, but I mean, he doesn't. I mean, he attracts some attention, but Shea and Gallo and Steven Adams, those guys don't attract the same level of attention that Kawhi and PG do. So again, it's a different story. And also, Montrezl Harrell won like this hustle award or whatever. Because again, people just like thinks because his game's not that exciting, because it's not. Because he's not really a shooter. He's not really a high flyer. He does a lot of scrappy. He has to be scrappy because he's an undersized center. So you can win the hustle award or whatever that is. Even though apparently they said that Kyle Lowry's never won it. So if he's never won it, then the award needs to be thrown away, because that's like his entire. He made a living and he survived in the league this long because of that very style of play. So again, it was just weird to see. And again, if you're a Lakers fan, I could see you being a little bit upset or displeased by this, only because it seems like they just love the Clippers for whatever reason. And again, I can't tell you the exact reason why or what it is that made Lawrence Frank so much better than every other candidate. But it seems like they came to the year like, oh, the Clippers are going to be the favorite, and the Clippers played well, and they were like, you know what, we can give them all a bunch of awards. Obviously, they didn't win Coach of the Year or anything like that. That would have been outrageous. But again, they just gave them a bunch of the awards. Like I said, how do you have the second place executive be the guy who took a lot of assets and things from the first place winner? How does that make any sense? Like, just logically, how does it be like, you know what, Sam Presti, you were so good for taking all those assets for Lawrence Frank, but still going to give Lawrence Frank the executive of the year? Like, either, is it Uchiwa or is it one Mike? You know what I'm saying? Like, either Sam Presti swindled Lawrence Frank, which we'll see how next season plays out, but that might be debatable, or Lawrence Frank did what he had to do to get Paul George. So like I said, which one is it? Because again, obviously Chris Paul is a big part of the reason why for that as well. But still, it seems kind of odd where a majority of the assets this one franchise got in an offseason, this one executive got, was from the executive that won Executive of the Year. It seems kind of odd. And then, like I said, then the whole Lakers angle, like again, maybe I missed it. Was Anthony Davis there last year for the Lakers? Or did I miss something where he was already on the team this offseason? So like that's not an acquisition? Because if that is, I don't know how that doesn't get you higher than seventh. Like I said, the Heat, I understand. But again, higher than the Bucs, like what did the Bucs do? Other than bring the whole team back. They let go of Brogdon. How does that not? That should lose you points. They kept Bledsoe and let go of Brogdon. That in and of itself should have lost the Bucs executive more points. Obviously, the Raptors were ahead of them, which is fair. Again, Masai was able to, but again, Masai didn't really do anything. He just kept the same team and drafted some decent guys, and they played well. He didn't really have to do a whole lot. And then the Memphis, again, they got John Morant. They brought in some other pieces, and Brandon Clark. They had some other pieces. So, okay, but that's not better than the Lakers. Again, you could say maybe the Heat are the only team above them that's better than the Lakers in terms of what they did this offseason from an executive standpoint. But I digress. I could go on this for whatever. But again, it just seems like the media decided this offseason they were just going to give the Clippers as many awards as they could. And like I said, I don't know how this guy wins. Again, shout out to Lawrence Frank. He did a good job. I'm not going to say I'm shocked he won Executive of the Year, but just by the margin that it wasn't really that close. Like it was the second, the distance between second and fifth was bigger than was smaller than the distance between the distance between second and Sam Presti and fifth in Masai Ujiri was only 1 point larger than the distance between first and second place. And it said that doesn't make any sense to me. Lawrence Frank should not have won it that clearly. When again, Sam Presti's biggest move was trading away Paul George. Because again, he doesn't trade away Paul George, then he doesn't have to acquire Chris Paul and all those other things. So I don't know. It didn't make any sense. But Game 5, Lakers Heat. Just gonna touch on this real quick. Yeah, I think the Heat are going to give it their best shot. I think they're going to try really hard. I think they're going to give it everything they got, and I don't think it's going to be enough because they just don't have the scoring. And because these are two very solid defensive teams, especially in the half court, and unless you're getting out in transition, it's going to be hard to score on these guys once you get into the half court because they play solid team defense. And on one end, a team has Anthony Davis and LeBron, who are perennial mismatches. And the Heat have Jimmy Butler and a bunch of guys that can shoot. And like I said, Hero struggled this series because again, he's the guard defense for the Lakers is very good. They helped shut down Jamal Murray, helped shut down Dame more or less. Helped shut down Harden had a pretty decent season, but shut down Russ really. He didn't really do a whole lot. So again, to expect Tyler Hero as a rookie to dominate was a tough ask before Dragic got hurt, and obviously a much tougher ask with him hurt. And again, Bam played fairly well, but I mean, it's tough for him to match up with whether it's with Dwight or whether it's with Anthony Davis. It's like that's a tough ask for him to be the main big guy because again, you're playing Kelly Olynyk as your backup big, and that's not a good idea. And then again, Duncan Robinson, he's a shooter. Jay Crowder, he's a shooter. These guys aren't going to score off the dribble like that. And again, the defense that the Lakers play is pretty solid with their switches and different things. So it's not like you're getting a whole lot of wide open shot opportunities. Now again, that doesn't mean that they can't make them, because the Heat are great 3-point shooters. They can make tough shots, especially Duncan Robinson. He shoots them all kind of weird angles and places and things like that. But if you're not, it hurts. And also, if you're going to have a situation where Jimmy Butler is not going to have the dominant performance, like again, the one game they won this series, he had to play almost a perfect game, basically. He had to have a almost perfect game on a basketball court. And they still didn't win that game by like a lot. It's not like they blew the Lakers out. Like, it was still a very close and very competitive game. And like I said, that was with him having a 40-point triple-double. So it's like, how much can you ask of... Well, I think about it, they won by 11, so let me not say that. It wasn't that close. But again, that was because of the Lakers' struggles down the stretch, if I remember correctly. But yeah, just like, again, in Game 4, he didn't really do a whole lot, and he could barely scratch 100. He was... like I said, they couldn't really do much to stop LeBron or AD in the second half. And then they... Like, Hero had 21 points, but on 8 of 18, none was bad. Iggy Olink didn't really provide a whole lot. Duncan Robinson and Bam were like at least efficient, but Crowder didn't really do a whole lot. And Hero had 21 points, but it took him 18 shots to get it, so it wasn't that efficient. Like I said, that's just going to be the issue, is that if Jimmy's not going to be on and aggressive and assertive in terms of trying to score, and a lot of that was hampered by the fact that they put AD on him, and he kind of struggled with that a little bit, because AD's big enough to bother him around the rim and in the short range. He's not shooting a lot of threes, which, again, obviously I understand, but also it hurts him. But also he's quick enough and agile enough to stay relatively in front of him when you're talking about from on the wing. So it's not like he was just lost out there on the perimeter. Like, no, he was relatively fine. So again, if that's going to be the problem, you're not worried about the 3-point shot, you can kind of sag off a little bit. It's going to be tough to score on a guy like Anthony Davis. And even if you do try to shoot, he has long arms, can affect the shot. So again, barring Jimmy Butler coming out and having an assertive and aggressive performance and dropping like 30-plus points, I don't see the Heat having enough offense. Again, I don't think Dragic is going to play, because he shouldn't. But again, especially without Dragic, I don't think the Heat are going to have enough offense. Assuming the Lakers just don't shoot like 30% from the field, something like that. I don't think they have enough offense to keep up. And I think the instead of the 4-4-4 or 4-4-4, I think is the old Sixers had it. I think there's going to be like a 5-5-5 thing where Lakers win every series in 5. And they just finished this out. I know originally said Lakers in 6, so I could potentially give the Heat this game, but I don't think they're going to go out like quietly. But I'm saying I just don't know where they're going to get the offense from. Like in the one game they won, it took a perfect performance, and Jimmy Butler had to get 40 for them to win. 40. And like I said, they didn't even crack 100 in Game 3. Cracked 100 in Game 2, but again, they gave up 124 points. And then in Game 1, obviously, we know what happened there. That was a disaster for them. So, I'm just saying, like, I don't know who the offense is going to be. Now, again, if you get a great performance from someone, then that obviously changes the course of things. But they're going to need someone other than Jimmy Butler to be great. And I don't know who that guy's going to be on the offensive end. I just don't. Like I said, I can't trust it to be Tyler Hero. He's a rookie, and again, they got good guard defenders. Bam's not really a scorer like that. That's why Dragic was so big, because he was their leading scorer. He's a guy that could hit threes, could beat guys off the dribble, can hit tough shots, things like that. Like some of the shots that Jimmy Butler can't take or won't take, he could take those shots from the perimeter, and you can make up for some of that. But again, Jimmy Butler's doing most of his damage near the rim, and if they're going to put Anthony Davis on him and not let him get good shots up at the rim, where's the offense going to come from? Again, with Anthony Davis, you don't have to sag off defenders that much. You can stay kind of glued to your guys in the corner and on the wings, where you're not giving Jimmy Butler a whole lot of passing opportunities out to the wing, to the Heroes, to the Duncan Robinsons, to the Jay Crowders, to the Iggy's of the world. And like I said, then you're kind of just like stuck. So I don't know what the Heat are going to do. Like I said, I don't think they're going to go out quietly, but it's going to be a tough game for them, in my opinion. It's going to be tough. But we'll see. Maybe they can surprise us and force a Game 6. And maybe even Game 7. But like I said, I don't see this series going past this weekend. I would be shocked if the Lakers drop 2 straight. But hey, crazier things have happened. So before we finish up, we're going to come back here in the next segment and discuss some of the games looking forward to from the college football and the NFL schedule. So we'll discuss all that right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And we're back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So we'll start with the college football ranks. And again, this isn't like the highest ranked matchup or maybe the biggest matchup, but the one I'm interested in seeing is obviously, is Oklahoma, Texas. Only because if Oklahoma wins, which I'm not saying that they will, but again, based on the way Texas is played, I can't give them the guaranteed win over Oklahoma. I mean, granted, Oklahoma's a 2.5-point favorite according to ESPN in the ESPN app in Oklahoma. So that kind of makes some semblance of sense because usually you give the home team a bit of a favorable spread, especially if the game is close or you think the game could be close. And like I said, neither Oklahoma or Texas has looked that great. They both could easily be 1-2. Obviously, Oklahoma is 1-2. And Texas is a Texas Tech collapse or just a recovered onside kick from being 1-2 potentially. But yeah, if Oklahoma wins this game and now they're both 2-2, but again, outside of Oklahoma State, with them going undefeated, which again can't 100% count on, at least not this early. It's too early in the season to know for sure. Again, when they still have to play, Texas and Oklahoma, that would basically end all talk of the Big 12 being in the college football playoff. Like completely end it, and this is the second week of October, and it would already be over. Like I said, that would be disaster for the conference. To be like, all right, we came back, we wanted to play, and now by game 4 in our season, in our schedule, we're going to already be out of the college football playoff conversation. Because our two highest ranked teams heading into the season will both now have 2 losses. And again, it's not like the Big 12 is like, it gets the same recognition or it's thought of in the same way as the SEC or like the Big 10 where a 2-win team out of that division or that conference could like, all right, maybe feasibly make the college football playoff. Like the Big 12 is not thought of that way. So a second loss for Texas, like I said, would be damaging to them. And like I said, then, all right, so Texas loses. Then if Oklahoma State loses to either of those 2 teams, again, obviously maybe they could get their act turned around, things like that, but then that hurts them as well because Oklahoma doesn't look that good, Texas hasn't looked that good. Like, that's going to be a bad loss, potentially. Like, again, if Texas loses, they're both going to probably be unranked. Because Oklahoma is currently unranked, and Texas would be, they're down to 22, so they would be unranked most likely if they lose to Oklahoma. So, like I said, the Big 12 is going to be stuck in that scenario if Oklahoma wins this game, which again is not out of the realm of possibility because I don't know how good Texas is. Again, they have a better record, but they haven't necessarily looked better. They just have a more experienced quarterback. That's really it. And again, maybe that's what it will come down to. Maybe that's all that matters. But it's not like Spencer Rattler hasn't had his good moments. He's obviously had his bad moments, but he has had his good moments. And like Texas is a powerhouse on defense. Like they've given up a lot of points. They gave up 63 points in that Texas Tech game. And again, if Bowman doesn't throw a couple boneheaded interceptions, they probably lose that game even without the massive comeback. Or even with the massive comeback, I should say. So, like I said, that's going to be an interesting one because the Rev River Showdown could put a fork in the Big 12's college football playoff chances if, like I said, Oklahoma wins. And looking around some other games, the Clemson-Miami matchup is an interesting one. Obviously, Clemson's highly favored. They'll probably win. But Miami's looked pretty good to start the season. De'Aaron King has looked pretty good to start the season. Obviously, both through the air and on the ground. Now, granted, neither team has really played anybody. Like, Miami's played UAB, Florida State, who looked terrible. And then Louisville, who at the time was ranked 18, so there is that, and they beat them by double digits. And then Clemson, on the other hand, has played Virginia, Citadel, and Wake Forest. So neither of them has really played anybody, and this is probably going to be the one. Well, Clemson also gets Notre Dame and Virginia Tech down the season, outside of the ACC championship game. So this is probably one of their better chances to get a quality win for either of these guys. So it's going to be a big game. Like I said, Clemson's going to be highly favored. They should probably win. But I want to see, is Miami legit, or are they just a product of a weak schedule to open the season at least? So that'll be a big one. That should be good. That's the late ABC game. Should be a fun one. Also, you got Georgia, Tennessee, two undefeated teams. Obviously, Georgia is highly favored, should win. But again, this is another opportunity for Tennessee to show if that 2-0 record is legit or it's a product of a weak schedule. Obviously, we know Georgia, in theory, is pretty legit. Like I said, they put it on Auburn last week, and they beat up on Arkansas the first week, and then. But also, they play Alabama next week, so you wonder if they're going to look past it. But I don't think Georgia can afford to look past it. They play Alabama and Florida as well, so they can't afford really too many losses to teams that aren't those two teams. Those two teams are both ranked in the top 5, though Georgia is also ranked in the top 5. So, but again, that's mainly because the Big Ten schools haven't played yet. So there is that. But yeah, it'd be another interesting one. From an ACC standpoint, North Carolina and Virginia Tech, the two top 20 ranked teams. Just a good test for North Carolina and Virginia Tech to kind of again see where they're at, because they're both going to be competing for a shot to win the ACC or a play against Clemson, something like that, because North Carolina gets Notre Dame and Miami later in their season. So again, if they get a big win off Virginia Tech, that'll be good to prove that they're legit. And Virginia Tech, again, also gets Miami, but they get Clemson instead of Notre Dame. So again, you have other chances to show that you're legit, but this would be a good feather in the cap of those guys before they get to those tougher games down the road, potentially. So again, just a couple good matchups. That's an early game, a 12 o'clocker. The Georgia-Tennessee is at 3:30. Like I said, Miami-Clemson's a later game. And I think Oklahoma and Texas is also a 12 o'clocker. So, again, a couple of decent matchups. Like I said, I think this is in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks is when Big 10 comes back, and then after 2 weeks after that is when Pac-12 comes back. So we're about a month out from having a full Power 5 slate. Again, obviously not every conference in college football is playing, but you saw the Power 5 conferences will be playing in about a month. So you don't have a full slate of college football once again. And then going to the NFL side of things, obviously I have my eyes on the NFC East or the NFC East, whatever you would prefer to call it, mainly because there's a lot of different storylines going on with each of the teams. Obviously, the Cowboys and Giants play each other, so one of those teams has to get a win, you would think, unless, again, they could always tie. But that would be a big one, because this is a real test on how bad the Cowboys are. Because, again, they should beat the Giants. The Giants are 0-4 currently. They played the Rams tough, so I give them credit for playing the Rams tough, excuse me. But again, they got lit up by Nick Mullins. They had their moments in the Steelers game in week 1, but again, Daniel Jones and the turnovers hurt them. And then again, they played a competitive game against the Bears, but that was Mitch. And again, they couldn't really get offense going. The offense struggled. They've only scored, I think, 3 touchdowns, I believe, this whole season. So you would think against a Cowboys defense that has literally given up 30-plus points to, I'm pretty sure, everybody that they played. I will double check that for you guys just to make sure, but I believe they've given up 30 points to every team that they played so far. If not 40, they obviously are one of, if not the worst defense, maybe statistically the worst defense in the league. No, they gave up 20 points to the Rams. Excuse me, I apologize. Only gave up 20. Like I said, gave up 39 to the Falcons, 38 to the Seahawks, and 49 to the Browns. Again, Giants don't have those kind of weapons that those other 3 teams do. But if there was a get-right game for the Giants, or at least from an offensive standpoint, it should be this one, with Jason Garrett going up against his former team, so you know he's going to want to show out to prove that, again, clearly he was not the issue. And then again, same thing for the Cowboys, is that, like, this is a game that, like, we should win this game, get ourselves back on track a little bit, get the defense, get itself back on track, finally, again, get back in the win column, because they could easily be 0-4 right now. And just show, like, all right, like, we're still probably bad, but, like, we're not, like, that bad. Now, if they lose this game, it's DEFCON 4. Like, I mean, people are going to be talking about if Mike McCarthy should be the head coach, like, different things. There's going to be a lot of issues. You're talking about, like trading guys, doing different things potentially. I don't think it'll get that crazy. But, again, you never know. You lose to the Giants, who knows what could happen that Monday. So, again, that's a big game for them. Washington is an interesting one because they play... Who do they play? They play the Rams. They should lose, but they benched Dwayne Haskins. And I haven't talked about that yet. But that was a very odd move to me because, again, I don't know what they thought that was going to happen. Again, I was always a little bit worried for Haskins when they brought in Kyle Allen because, again, he was with the Panthers last year. They brought over a lot of Ron Rivera and some other Panthers offensive staff. So you worried if he was their guy more than Haskins was because they had no ties to him. But also, it's not like Kyle Allen was like that good last year. Like, he's part of the reason why Ron Rivera got fired was because of his play. He ended up getting benched there at the end, too. So it's not like, again, he's some great prospect or this lights-out quarterback. Like, no. Now, again, I'm not saying Dwayne Haskins is great. I'm definitely not thinking that. But I don't think he was at all the main issue with the Washington football team, in my opinion. Again, he was a issue. But, again, that's the crazy part is he's not even going in the backup. He's now inactive. Like, Alex Smith is a hit away from playing in a game, which would be malpractice in my opinion. Because there's no way he should be playing. Again, him being on the sidelines and him being suited up, like, that's great. It's a great story. But in terms of, like, actual play on the field, like, he should not be anywhere near a football field, in my opinion, right now. And again, maybe he'll come back and have a good game, but there's no way his mobility is where it should be. And again, he's one wrong step or one wrong hit away from now needing another surgery on his leg and potentially losing, because he almost lost it before. Now, again, I understand that he wants to get back out there, he wants to be part of the team. Like, that's fine. You could do that. But we're talking about playing in a game with people that are trying to hurt you. Like, why would you, as a franchise, subject him to that? And also, why would you, as a player, want to be subjected to that? Like I said, I don't think Dwayne Haskins was great, but he wasn't, like, that big of an issue. Like, it's not like he's thrown for, he's going to be 61% of his passes, thrown for 939 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, been sacked 13 times, has an 80 quarterback rating and 27 QBR. So again, not great at all. And again, I don't know what they were expecting, because again, at this point, if you bench him 4 games into the season, you're basically saying, like, if we're bad, we're drafting a quarterback. We're done with you. Like, again, I don't know how you go back to him from Kyle Allen. It's not Kyle Allen's great. Like, I don't expect Kyle Allen. He might win them the game. Oh, he probably shouldn't beat the Rams. But if he does, all right, cool. In fairness, Dwayne Haskins beat the Eagles. Obviously, the Rams are better than the Eagles right now. But still, it's not their own 4. And like I said, Daniel Jones isn't getting that same treatment. Again, because the GM's still there. Sam Darnold isn't getting that same treatment. And he has a different GM. But again, the same coach is there. And I'm not even sure he's playing worse than those 2 guys at this moment. He's not playing great. But I'm not sure he's playing worse than those 2 guys. Fitzpatrick still is not getting benched for Tua. Like I said, I don't really know the reasoning behind benching him, other than they just like Kyle Allen more. Which, again, is a reasonable thing, because he was a part of the Panthers organization, and he might be more of their guy than Dwayne Haskins is. But again, you took the job knowing Dwayne Haskins was a quarterback. If you were going to get rid of him that soon, it seems kind of odd to me to do it that this quickly. Again, teach his own, but it's kind of odd to just get it done like we got to feel like, especially with again, obviously don't want to bring the race thing into it too much, but black quarterbacks definitely get a much shorter leash than white quarterbacks do. So, and again, I don't even think Dwayne Haskins is that good, but just, again, to get pulled after 4 games, was not, Washington was supposed to be competing for anything this year. It's just kind of odd to me, but hey, what do I know? And then, again, obviously with the Eagles, they play the Steelers coming off their bye, and this would be a big test for them because obviously they still got some experience on that offensive line, and the Steelers have a great pass rush, have a great overall defense. So this will be a good test to see, like, all right, where's this line at? Where's the offense at? Because, again, it looked better against the Niners, but obviously that team was missing corners, missing linemen. Yeah, their two best linebackers were out there, but again, they were injury depleted team. It was like the Eagles were injury depleted team, and then also they faced the backup quarterback. So again, this would be a good test to see, like, are they actually right, or did they just happen to play Nick Mullins last week? And we'll see. But again, if the defensive line, continues to dominate the way it's been, it leads the league in sacks. Though Steelers could lead that league in sacks. They had like 15 through 3 games, so they've been amazing. T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree may be the best pass rushing duo in the league, depending on who you ask. But yeah, they've been great. They've been dominant, especially the last 2 weeks. They've had 13 sacks and I think like 33 quarterback hits, something like that. And again, Big Ben's a hard guy to get down, but he's not as mobile as he used to be. So if you can get to him and you can get a bunch of guys there, you could have another 3-4 sack day. Maybe get a turnover or two, because not like Big Ben's not prone to interceptions or fumbles, things like that. So again, it'd be an interesting thing to see if the Eagles are right and they're going to kind of turn the season around at least a little bit, or if they just happen to play a backup quarterback last week. So that would be another interesting game for me to pay attention to. I'm trying to look at the other games around the league. This isn't like the greatest slate of games. Well, Raiders Chiefs is an interesting one only because because the Raiders obviously start off 2-0. You thought maybe they could be legit, but if they lose again, now they're 2-3. Legitimacy kind of wears off a little bit. Though again, it's the Chiefs. It's not like that's an easy team to beat. So there's no knock in losing to the Chiefs. But again, at the same time, if you want to compete for a playoff spot, these are these teams you have to compete against and also beat come playoff time if you want to have a chance to advance and do things like that. So this is a good test for them early in the season to kind of get back on track for them. But we'll see how that goes. Another one is obviously not obviously, but Bengals Ravens, because Joe Burrow got his first win, which shout out to him. That's all. Obviously, as a rookie, you always want to get that first win under your belt. But now he takes that win and will be going into Baltimore for the first time, which is a completely different animal, a completely different kind of test. And just want to see where he's at right now with the team. Again, he's going to get the blitz a lot. He's already getting blitzed a lot, but the Ravens blitz a lot. They have guys like Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey that will take the ball away if you throw it near them or give them the opportunity to. So he's going to have to be careful with that. And again, just a good test to see what situation. Also, Lamar Jackson missed practice with the knee injuries on Thursday. So that's another one I want to keep my eyes on just to see if Lamar Jackson is right for that game, because that could be a big one. If he can't go or he's a little bit more hobbled, that could play into the Bengals. And though, again, the Bengals defense is not that good. But it could slow down that offense and at least keep the game a little bit more competitive. So again, just want to see how the Bengals and Joe Burrow builds off that win, though I do not expect them to actually win the game. And then the last game I'll talk about is Colts-Browns, only because, at least record-wise, probably the most competitive matchup of the weekend, outside of obviously 3-1 on Thursday night. That'll be Colts-Browns, both 3-1, and both kind of up in the air on how good either of those teams are currently or how good people think those teams are. Obviously, the Colts have one of the best defenses in the league right now, and the Browns are just coming off a game where they put up 49 points. So you want to see if that, again, those were those points, and was that offensive explosion a product of the Cowboys being sorry, or was it because the Browns are getting it right? Now, obviously, it's the first full game without Nick Chubb, so you kind of want to see, again, where they're at. But when you look at, again, their wins, the Browns are against the Bengals, Washington, and Cowboys, all teams that have one win currently. And the one time they played a good team in the Ravens, they got smoked. So, again, this is another opportunity to show people, like, hey, we're not that bad. Like, maybe we're actually good, especially going into the game next week against their first game against the Steelers. And then even the same thing for the Colts. Like, they haven't really played anyone that great yet, depending on what you think about the Bears. But they lost to the Jaguars, who I think are 1-3 right now. So that's not a good loss at all. And then they beat the Vikings, who are 1-3, so that's, again, kind of up in the air on how good they are. Their defense does not look that good, but though they obviously had Kirk out there struggling. Yeah, the Jaguars only have one win. So, yeah, I'm saying that's a bad loss. And then they beat the Jets, who are the Jets, and they beat the Bears last week. So, again, this would be a good game for whoever wins this game to be like, hey, look, we are a legit team. As of this point right now, being a 3-1 team is a legit win. So, that'll be a good one. And I think it should be interesting. And like I said, it'll be a good feather in the cap of whoever wins that game. And then Bills-Titans is going to be a good match, but that's not happening until Tuesday. So we'll talk about that on the Sunday and the Monday pod. But yeah, those are the games at least I'm paying attention to. If you have your own games you're paying attention to, feel free to reach out to us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, GSMC Sports. We can talk about them there, talk about what you're looking forward to. Like I said, whether it's baseball, well, not baseball because the last game was Friday, but whether it's NFL, college, whatever you're looking forward to, reach out to us there. If you like what you've heard today, you like what you've heard on other episodes of the podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, so you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, wherever this is your podcast, give us a 5-star rating. Our review would be very appreciated, very helpful. Again, I'll see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways you can improve, all that fun stuff. And before I get out of here, I don't think I did it on the last episode, so shout out to Breonna Stewart, shout out to Sue Bird and the Seattle Storm. They won the WNBA Finals. I'm pretty sure it was a 3-0 sweep. Dominant performance, especially in that Game 3. And I'm not going to go there yet, but we might have a future GOAT on our hand. We'll definitely have a future GOAT, but we might have she might be the GOAT by age 30. If you look at just what Breonna Stewart has accomplished in her basketball career, I mean, it's second to none at this age. And again, this is with her missing all of last year. With I think she had, was she the ACL or the Achilles? I think she might have been the Achilles. But again, she had an injury last year, which caused her to miss the whole season. So then they won the championship. Her and Stu Bird were out. Then she won a championship again and was Finals MVP. So again, just go and look at Breonna Stewart's resume right now, what she's accomplished at 26 years old. Again, up there on the GOAT status. Again, there's a lot of arguable GOATs: Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Bob Meyer Moore. There's Candace Parker. There's others that I could name as Tamika Catchings. Like there's quite a few names that could be on that short list for GOAT. But I'm saying Breonna Stewart's very much etching her name up there. And again, she's only 26 years old, going to have a lot of years left ahead of her, and more accomplishments to go. So, shout out to the Seattle Storm. Like I said, I forgot to do that on the last podcast. But yeah, that'll do it for me here today. I want to thank you guys for listening as always. Before I get out of here, I want to make sure I give a shout out to essential workers like I always do. First responders, EMTs, doctors, nurses, firefighters, postal service workers, grocery store workers, delivery drivers, retail workers, all those guys everybody's been deemed essential during this pandemic. Thank you for all the hard work you've done. Thank you for having to deal with people on a daily basis and making sure that we are all the normal people and come in and out of stores, in and out of restaurants, in and out of different places, hospitals potentially, are safe and are cared for. And even if you deal with people that may not take the pandemic as seriously as they should, again, you still gotta do your job, which I know can be tough, but I appreciate you guys doing that. Because again, it's actually during these times it can be a very thankless job. So I'm trying to give you guys the thanks that you deserve when I can. Also shout out to delivery, Amazon, FedEx, UPS, those kind of guys as well. Also, if you're gonna go out to a restaurant, go out to a bar. I went out to a restaurant this week for the first time since the pandemic. It was outdoors. It went relatively smoothly. But again, if you're going to go out, tip your waiters, tip your waitresses, tip your bartenders, whoever. Again, not saying to go beyond your means, but if you have a little bit and you can afford to tip generously, which I tried to do, again, I imagine it'll be appreciated. It'll go a long way for some of these people. So it just go along with the show that you appreciate the work they're doing and the hardship that they face having to deal with this kind of thing. Especially in the restaurant industry, where a lot of restaurants are having to close down. They're not getting the same business, not getting the same amount of business and the same amount of money, things like that. So I know these people in these industries can be hurting. So if you can go a little bit above and beyond, I imagine it will be appreciated. Also, like I said, wear a mask. But that'll do it for me today. I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.